Hi everyone, so my name is Emily Halverson, and today we are going to talk about the Annie Dookhan scandal in Eastern Massachusetts and the non-compliance standards that were associated with this case. So a little background before we get started. So Annie Dookhan worked at the Hinton Crime Lab for roughly 8 years. So the Hinton Crime Lab shut down in August of 2012 by orders of the governor of Massachusetts, and in September 2012, Annie Dookhan was arrested. In 2013, Dookhan pled guilty to the charges that were against her. Backtracking a little bit, in 2011, Dookhan was questioned about a lab logbook regarding her initials and the initials that seemed to be forged. And the initials were a GP, and she did later confess that she did forge them herself. So starting there, we're going to get into it. So the first standard that did not meet the compliancy standards was standard 6.2.1, which regards personnel. So the standard wording is all personnel of the laboratory, either internal or external, that could influence the laboratory activities shall act impartially, being competent, and work in accordance with the laboratory's management system. So for this one, it was breached by a lack of necessary education. She claims to have had a master's degree in chemistry, which she did not have. And it kind of falls in line with the standard 6.2.3, which also deals with personnel. That one states that the laboratory shall ensure that the personnel have competency to perform laboratory activities for which they are responsible and to evaluate the significance of deviations. So she stated in the police report and everything that her duty was to analyze foreign substances, and since she didn't have the formal education to do that, she was basically dry labbing and tainting evidence and everything, which violates both standards. The next standard we're going to talk about is standard 6.2.5. It states the laboratory shall have procedures and retain records for determining the competency requirements, selection of personnel, training of personnel, supervision of personnel, authorization of personnel, and monitoring competency of personnel. So this was breached by falsifying reports. As I've stated, she did falsify that logbook by writing or forging initials. The lack of education, she does not have a master's degree in chemistry. And for the management side, there was multiple issues going on. I mean, she was suspected of dry labbing for a couple years. There was multiple concerns surrounding her, and nothing seemed to ever be done. So standard 7.9.2 deals with complaints. So the standard wording from iOS/IEC 17025, a description of the handling process for complaints shall be available to any interested party upon request. Upon receipt of a complaint, the laboratory shall confirm whether the complaint relates to laboratory activities that it is responsible for, and if so, shall deal with it. The laboratory shall be responsible for all decisions at all levels of the handling process for complaints. So this was breached by the supervisor told potential whistleblowers that their complaints were being dealt with when they in fact were not. It doesn't even seem that they were even acknowledged. He would always just say that they were being dealt with, that it was being handled and everything. So there was no resolution for those potential whistleblowers. The next standard also deals with complaints. It is standard 7.9.4. This states that the laboratory receiving the complaint shall be responsible for gathering and verifying all necessary information to validate the complaint. So because the complaints to the supervisor went unnoticed and ignored for multiple years, because there is no humanly way that Annie Dookhan could have gotten through so many samples as she did without tampering or dry labbing, and they were not accurate. So questions were arising around her results, around her methods, everything like that with the supervisor. just kind of brushed off the complaints and didn't really look into them or verify any of the information that was being said. So standard 8.9.3 deals with management reviews. Option A, this states the outputs from the management review shall record all decisions and actions related to at least A, the effectiveness of the management system and its processes, B, the improvement of the laboratory activities related to the fulfillment of the requirements of this document, C, provision of required resources, and D, need for any change. So it seems like there was a lack of supervision going on within this crime lab. The Hinton Crime Lab, the supervisor in charge, did not create an effectiveness of the management system because so many complaints went unnoticed. Annie Dookhan's training seemed to be falsified, so her education was a lie. Basically, there was a need for change that did not seem to happen because of the lack of supervision that was being held within the Hinton Crime Lab. So for conclusions, Annie Dookhan's tampering of evidence and dry labbing led to the dismissal of more than 21,000 cases as early as 2018 in eastern Massachusetts. I believe it is still going on, and the consequences that Massachusetts is having to deal with now is astronomical. They are having to deal out multiple payments to falsely incarcerated individuals. They have to go through every case that she has worked on to see if it was tampered or not, and to see if there is any way to basically look at the case differently, considering most of the evidence has been destroyed. So it kind of makes everything a little more difficult, especially because when one person was let out, I cannot remember his name, but he went and killed another man in a parking lot. So they really have to be careful about who gets released and who is deemed releasable because of the evidence that was tampered with and everything like that. So the consequences are still going on for Annie Dookhan's dry labbing and tampering with evidence. Here's my works cited. Thank you so much.